بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما تنفعنا به يا رب العالمين. اللهم بلغنا رمضان، اللهم بلغنا رمضان، اللهم بلغنا رمضان، جعلنا فيه من الفائزين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Inshallah ta'ala, today we will continue that series of khawatir, preparing for Shahr Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. And we are trying to focus or concentrate on some fiqhi elements of the fast, inshallah ta'ala. And today we would like to continue this discussion, the fiqhi aspects of the fast. And the question we would like to answer today is, upon whom the fast is mandatory? Upon whom is the fast mandatory? And the answer that so many of you are familiar with is that the fast is mandatory upon al-Muslim, al-Aqil, al-Baligh, al-Muqim, وبالنسبة للمرأة الخالية من الحيض والنفاس. Basically, it's mandatory, the fast is mandatory upon every Muslim. This is the first condition. The second is al-Aqil, which is sound mind. Person has to be with a sound mind to be obliged to fast. The third condition, baligh. Baligh, which is a person who reached the age of puberty, of a taklif, of responsibility. And number four, as-sahih, the person who is healthy. The person who is healthy, because the sick doesn't have to fast. And number five, al-muqim, the person who is not traveling. The person who is a resident. When we say resident, you don't have to have a green card to fast Ramadan, right? When you say resident, which means you are not in state of traveling. You are not in state of traveling, which is, we'll explain it shortly. And the last condition, number six, is this only applies for women. They must be clear from bleeding, menstruation bleeding, as well as post-delivery bleeding, which is in nifas. Now let's start from the beginning. Al-Muslim al-Aqil, the person who doesn't have a sound mind, which is insane, doesn't have to fast. Doesn't have to fast. Al-Majnoon, and you have to go to the specialist to determine or diagnose if the person has a sound mind or not. What people don't know is, if the person reaches a point where who doesn't have sound mind anymore, what should we do with this person? Ahkam. What do you think? We know if the person has permanent disease, chronic disease, such a person doesn't have to fast, and all what we need to do is give fidya instead of fasting. Why? Because there is no hope for cure at any time soon. How about the person who reaches the point of al-kharaf, Alzheimer, or something similar to such a state where the person is not with a sound mind anymore? What do we need to do? Yes?
So I believe when he become aqil, like when he get his mind back, or his
Okay.
conscious back,
Okay.
then he has to fast. But as long as he's not in sound mind,
He doesn't have to fast as long as he doesn't have sound mind. The answer is, most people treat the person with such symptoms like the person with chronic disease, which is wrong. The person with chronic disease still have aql, which is mukallaf, but unable to follow taklif, unable to fulfill Allah's obligation, physically unable. But al-insan al-majnoon, he's not mukallaf to begin with. He's like a child. So there is no fidya required for somebody who doesn't have sound mind. So the point is, I know so many people, when their parents reach an age where they don't have a sound mind anymore, again, this is to be determined by specialists, not haphazard, not random diagnosis. They think they need to do fidya, and if they would like to do it, that's fine, but there is no mukallaf. When the person reaches that point, he's not mukallaf. You understand what this means, not mukallaf, right? Not mukallaf, which means you are not responsible for any obligation because you don't have a sound mind. It's like a child. Is that clear? So the person who is majnoon, or fi hukm al-majnoon, who is insane, or in a category where doesn't have a sound mind anymore, there is no need for his children nor for his relatives to pay fidya on his behalf. The reason why the person reaches a point where he's not mukallaf anymore. However, if the person has a condition where the mind comes and goes, this is where your answer would apply. So when you have your aql, you are mukallaf. And when you lose your aql, you are not mukallaf. And you don't have to make up for these days. Is that clear? So it is different from a sickness. It's different from a sickness where you are required to make up for these days later on if the sickness is temporarily. If the sickness is permanent, if the sickness is chronic, all what we need to do is pay fidya, and we'll talk about the fidya later on. So this is the second condition, which is al-aqil. One condition for the fast to be mandatory is sound mind. Now the next is al-baligh. Yes. It's true for all the obligations. Because a person with sound mind is a condition for all the taklif. The person, when the person loses this quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-aql, doesn't have to do any obligation. But you have to be careful in diagnosing such a case, right? Go ahead, yes. Yes, if the person doesn't recognize these things anymore and they recognize Alzheimer or something similar, yes, they don't have to fast. And I don't know, maybe it could be, when you talk to a specialist, it could be levels in Alzheimer, right? So if the person, what matters, if the person does not recognize Allah's obligation anymore, so he's not accounted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes. Yes, this is something we will discuss when we talk about regular sickness. Just be patient a little bit. So we said the first condition is Muslim, the second condition is what? Aqil. For the fast to be obligatory, sound mind. The third condition is puberty. So before the age of puberty, people or kids are recommended, encouraged to fast, but it's not an obligation upon them. And it's up to the parents to determine what is the age where you start training them to fast. It could be as young as 5, 6, 7 years old, but you need to train them gradually to fast part of the day and then fast few days in Ramadan until inshallah ta'ala before the age of puberty they are ready to fast an entire month. For men, the way to determine puberty is wet dream, and for women by starting their menstruation. However, if men or women reach age 15 and they don't get any of these signs, they have reached the age of puberty regardless of these signs. So to reach age of puberty is one of two ways, either wet dream for men or age of 15. For women, either menstruation or the age of 15. And when we say 15 is lunar calendar, not regular calendar. So which means our regular calendar is 14 and a half, right? 15 years of lunar calendar means 14 and a half in our regular calendar. The next condition is a sahih, which is somebody to be healthy. If somebody who is sick doesn't have to fast. And which type of sickness would allow you to break the fast? There are two types of sickness. There are illnesses that they are temporarily, and there are illnesses they are chronic and permanent. When it comes to the first one, the sickness that is temporarily, then you can break the fast, and then inshallah ta'ala when you recover after Ramadan you can make up these days later on. When it is chronic disease, then there is no hope for cure. All what you need to do, feed per every day a miskin or faqir, a needy person. What we call it al-fidya. Now which type of sickness? Because it could be sickness, temporarily or chronic, but how do you determine that this sickness allows you to break the fast? The ulama said there are three things by which we can determine this sickness allows you to break the fast. The first is if the sickness puts your life at risk, which means serious sickness that puts your life at risk. The second way to recognize that the sickness does allow you to break the fast, if the sickness if the fast will prolong your sickness. For example, I am sick and I can handle to fast. If I fast, doesn't put my life at risk. However, if I do fast, it will prolong my sickness. So this is a reason to break the fast. The third, I am sick. If I fast, I'm not putting my life at risk. However, if I fast, my situation will get worse. You got the difference? So if you fast, you'll put your life at risk, you break the fast. If you fast, you prolong the sickness, you can break the fast. If you fast and you can make the situation worse, then you break the fast. And at the bottom of this issue is you need to consult with a doctor, preferably a Muslim doctor, because sometimes non-Muslim doctors don't recognize the value of Ramadan. And it happens even to me and my relatives. They go to the doctor and said, can I fast Ramadan? They said, no, you should eat and drink in Ramadan. And then after I explained to them the importance, the significance of Ramadan from Islamic perspective, said, no, we didn't know this. You could fast, you can handle it. So sometimes they, just for convenience, they tell you, oh, for example, if the sister is pregnant or somebody is a little sick, oh, you need to drink a lot of water, but not knowing that any fast has an element of hardship in it, has an element of difficulty in it, but it is manageable. When they recognize the importance of the fast, then they will tell you, no, you can fast and you can handle this hardship. So it is important to have a Muslim advise a doctor, or if non-Muslims, you need to explain to them the significance of the fast from an Islamic perspective. Now, the last one is somebody who is traveling, doesn't have to fast. However, the travel has to be with certain also conditions, has to be at least 50 miles and up. And the fast has to be legitimate, not traveling just to break the fast, right? Today is a hot day, let's go to New York City so we can break the fast. We cannot do this, right? So it has to be legitimate travel. Now, when you travel with a legitimate excuse, then you are one of two people. Either the travel is not overwhelming and you can handle the fast, so it is better for you to fast, however, you have the permission to break the fast. Now, if you are traveling and the travel is so difficult, exhausting, like back in the day, they travel on the camels and animals, it is very exhausting, then it's better to break the fast because you would like to be healthy and you don't want to put your life at risk. And lastly, the sisters who are with bleeding, menstruation bleeding, or post-delivery bleeding, they cannot fast Ramadan. So they have to be clear from this bleeding and able to fast Ramadan. So inshallah ta'ala, these are the conditions for the fast to be mandatory. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll answer brother question and then we'll move. What was your question? So you need to talk to the doctor. So if you take insulin per se, if the doctor said you can wait until after Maghrib and you will be fine, then that's fine, you have to fast. But if the doctor said your situation requires to take insulin a particular time because XYZ, then you can break the fast. So you have to consult with a Muslim doctor. I emphasize on a Muslim doctor. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to reach Ramadan. You still have a question? Yes.
Yeah. So if you allow to break the fasting, does it
You can only feed if you are with chronic disease. If you have a regular disease, then you can break the fast and you must make up the day later on. Same thing if you are traveling. If you are traveling, you are allowed to break the fast, but you have to make up the days later on. Same thing, women with menstruation or bleeding, post-delivery bleeding, they break the fast and they have to make up the days later on. So the only two categories that they are allowed to feed instead of making up is people with chronic disease or elderly who are getting very weak and there is no hope that they get in a situation where they can fast. They are not insane, by the way, so they still have their mind sound, but they are physically very weak, but they cannot fast. So they are considered as people with chronic disease. They don't fast and they feed instead. There is another third case where women can feed instead of fasting if what we call it tawali al-haml wal-irda'. If sisters are pregnant and they are breastfeeding, and right after breastfeeding they are pregnant again, they are breastfeeding and then they get pregnant again, breastfeeding, which means there is tarakumat, accumulation of so many Ramadans upon them. So in this case, al-ulama said if it becomes overwhelming upon them, they can fast whatever they can and feed for the remaining of days. Not pregnant for 1 year. They call it tawali al-haml wal-irda', which is pregnancy. Yes, sort of several pregnancy, and there is accumulation of making up so many Ramadans. In this case, al-ulama said such women can fast whatever they can and feed for the remaining of the days, because could be 4, 5, 6 Ramadans, because when you are pregnant and you couldn't fast for legitimate reason, and then you are breastfeeding next Ramadan, and next Ramadan you are pregnant, and the next Ramadan you are breastfeeding, and the next Ramadan you are pregnant, and next Ramadan you are breastfeeding. Maybe you didn't fast so many days in these Ramadans, maybe the entire month you didn't fast. So in this case they are allowed also to do so. However, they need to break the fast, they need to get consultation from a doctor that their case requires them to break the fast, because there is a risk on their life or the life of or the baby. Wallahu ta'ala أعلى وأعلم. اللهم بلغنا رمضان، اللهم بلغنا رمضان وجعلنا فيه من الفائزين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.